नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल दोस्तों। स्वागत है आपका एक बार फिर से हमारे YouTube चैनल ब्रास फ्यूजन्स पर, जहां आज हम आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं एक नया लेसन।
So gives it after its incorporation an independent status, and legally the courts also recognized it as a judicial person. So it is now a statutory person as well as a legislative person. And the legislative perspective, of course, is defined under the Companies Act, whether it is 1956 or 1913 or now 2013. And from the judicial side, the first case where the legal personality concept has been affirmed is the case of Solomon, where the House of Lords held that it is having a different existence, whoever the members may be. So hence, after incorporation, even if it is a one person run company where his own relatives, his own persons are the people, when it comes to the question of liability, the liability that is as a kind of shareholder only, they are liable to give. It's not that beyond any means. That has been recognized in the case of Solomon. And then we started discussing in the Indian context. Indian context, the earlier issues that were related to the majority of the cases are with relation to the taxation. Taxation in the sense that taxes are levied, the state tax are levied. So remember, the case laws which you have discussed is prior to the constitutional amendment. So at that time, that were, even the property that is purchased by the company, all these were considered as the coming under the fundamental rights. So that is why there is no need to get confused that it is not a fundamental right now, and how why Article 31 has been discussed. So in the State Trading Corporation case, again, it was discussed by the Supreme Court and held that the citizenship cannot be enjoyed by the company, but at the same time, it can enjoy the nationality, then it can enjoy the domicile, it can enjoy having its residence, and certain fundamental rights that are available to any person. Then the next case which we have discussed is the telcos case. It is the state of Bihar, telco versus state of Bihar. So in that, telcos, there are many cases, but the case that is of our concern is of the year 1965. Okay, so if you Google the telco now, you will find even the cases relating to the competition aspect. But what we are concerned is relating to the companies. That is why it is specifically the 1965 case where they discussed, or whether this telco company filed the petition before the court invoking Article 32 of the Constitution by saying that the state of Bihar is not having the right to impose the tax on the sale that they have done, because they said that they can avail the protection under Article 286 of the Constitution, which signifies the restrictions as to the imposition of tax on sale or purchase of goods. That means if it is outside the state, then the state government cannot impose it. So that is what has been challenged. So though Nani Palkiwala tried to distinguish the concept of article, the freedom of trade and occupation, this article 19 subclause 1 subclause G and article 19 subclause 1 and subclause C, the court rejected these arguments and said that the company is having a distinct characteristic, and hence, and these rights are available to again to the citizens, and they don't have the right to invoke Article 32 and approach the court. So that was again dismissed by the court. And today let us again see the case that is relating to the, the rights of the shareholder, the fundamental rights that can be enjoyed by the shareholder in the famous case of RC Cooper versus Union of India. Though I have given you the passing reference relating to the, the RC Cooper case, let's try to understand it in a very elaborate manner, especially that is relating to the concept of rights of the shareholder. Okay, so let me screen share this. Are you able to see the screen? Kindly respond. Are you able to see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. So this is the very famous case. So this case again, you'll be studying when if you're taking the insurance and banking case. And this case is what we are going to discuss in this case is relating to the rights of the shareholders and the directors of the company. What was discussed by the court in 1970. So this case is famously known as the bank nationalization case. So in this case, what happened was that one midnight, the government acquired all the 14 commercial banks. See, this is what Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertaking Act in 1962. So what they said that they approached, that is after the petitioners, this Rustam RC Cooper, he approached saying that there is a fundamental right violation because these banking companies are again, they are registered under the Companies Act. So a lot of discussions were have taken place, but this is what the gist is. In July 1964, the acting president then promulgated the exercise of the power conferred under Article 123 ordinance. So this is what generally do. So the undertaking of 14 commercial banks, and it held that deposit not less than rupees 50 crores. So this is what the criteria that has been decided in the corresponding new bank set up under the ordinance. So they said that they will be paying the shareholders of the existing bank the compensation. So the petitions, okay, so this RC Cooper challenged the constitutionality of this ordinance. But before the court heard this, they enacted this, undertaking act. So it became ordinance has converted to the legislation. So what they said that they will acquire and transfer the undertaking of these companies in order to serve for the development of the economy and conformity. So for the welfare measures. So remember the government, the constitution also provide this type of exemplary powers for the central government to come up with. So whatever we are viewing nowadays, it is not something new, but it was there earlier also. The same things used to continue that time also, and now also the things are continuing because the constitution gives the power to do, provided they have the majority. So in between there was majority was not there, a kind of coalition type of governments were happening. So that's why this type of changes, or we were not witnessing the drastic changes in the form of bill or legislation or passing, like what happened now in the parliament. So like this we were not witnessing because of the lack of majority. But these things happened in 1960s, if these cases are the proof of it. So before the Supreme Court took up the case, it has been converted to the legislation and already the government acquired it. So now what is remaining remedy with the petitioners or the court is to discuss with regard to the compensation and the right of the shareholder, whether the shareholders can approach, or whether their fundamental rights has been violated or not. So I'm skipping all these things because it is majority relating to the banking legislation perspective. I have just to see here. So what they held, or what was their aspect, whether the question was whether these petitions are maintainable. That was the question. You can see who are all the judges. Okay, Justice Shah, Sikri, Shelvet, Bhargava, Mitter, Reddy, Dua. So all these, they said that whether this writ that is filed by R.C. Cooper, whether it is maintainable or not. So the court discussed, and they said that a company that is registered under the Indian Companies Act is a legal person, separate and distinct from its individual members. So what we can see is that we don't have the direct, Salomon's case as referred with the same facts and situations, but whenever the question came, the Indian courts also affirmed the English position by by emphasizing that company is having a distinct operation. So this case again, they said that it is a legal person. So that is what the court mentioned. The term used is the legal person, and it is from its individual, and hence a shareholder, a depositor, or a director is not entitled to petition for infringement of the rights of the company unless the action impugned his rights are also infringed. Now the question is, what the government did? The government has acquired the banks. So banking company, it is having a separate legal independent existence. So how can, on behalf of the banks, the shareholders approach saying that fundamental rights has been infringed? Now the question is whether the fundamental rights of the company has been infringed. Now acquisition of the company through the proper legislation by the government, how can we say that the company is getting infringed because of that? As far as the company is concerned, its business will continue. Only the ownership of the company has changed, right? Only the ownership of the company has changed, and that too through the legal process. So they brought it, or they have acquired it through the bill, or through the legislation with an object as a social welfare measure. So how we can say that the company's fundamental rights has been violated, right? So this is the type of argument that has been taken up before the court. So hence a shareholder, a depositor, or a director is not entitled to move a petition for infringement of the rights of the company unless the action impugned his rights are also infringed. So here for the shareholders, they will be compensated. They will be compensated by the appropriate mechanisms. So their rights are not infringed. After all, what is the purpose of having the shareholder? It is your profit, company's business, and acquiring the profit. So that is the argument that has taken. And if the state action impairs the right of the shareholder as well as of the company, the court will not, concentrating merely upon the technical operation of the action, deny itself jurisdiction to grant the relief. So that means there is, why should the court entertain this? Because it is the state action, and it is not that without any law, with the legal background or with the legal backup only they have taken this. Then the present case, what is the act of the petitioner? So the petitioner's claim was that by the act and the ordinance, the rights guaranteed to him under Article 14, that is right to equality, right to freedom of trade and profession, Article 19, and 31 means right to hold property. So remember again, that time it was the fundamental right. Right to property was fundamental right. But after the Keshavananda Bharati's case, that has been removed from the concept of fundamental right. So at that time, 14, 19, 31, all these were the fundamental right. So they said that by acquiring it, the ordinance, the rights guaranteed to them has also been violated. And he challenged, so his own rights and not of the banks. So what he said, because if we refer to the earlier case of State Trading Corporation of India and other, they said that a company is not a citizen, right? So here, R.C. Cooper has challenged the infringement of his fundamental right. What is his fundamental right? Equality, right to equality principle, he said. Right to freedom to form association, freedom of trade, and right to hold the property. These rights of the shareholder has been curtailed or infringed. That is how he challenged. So after, because he has not challenged it on behalf of the bank. Okay, so he has challenged this act in his individual capacity as the shareholder of the bank. And it is not that on behalf of the bank saying that, bank is not saying that my fundamental rights has been violated by the acquisition. But here he has approached, the shareholder has approached saying that by acquisition, by the state, my rights as a shareholder has been infringed because as per the status, fundamental rights are not available to the company, even if it is the citizenship or other rights also, right? So the court in here, by referring to the earlier cases which we already discussed, that is the State Trading Corporation of India versus the commercial tax officer, and also the case which we discussed, telco case, said that these are inapplicable here because these two cases, state trading and the telco case, they were relating to the taxation issues, taxation matter, right? And taxation that is available to the citizens. So hence they were denied, saying that, and in these cases, both the cases, the company were represented by the shareholder. In both the cases, it is not the shareholders who approach saying that their fundamental rights has been violated, but in both these cases, the company through the shareholders approach saying that fundamental right of the company has been violated. So where the court has, so these two cases are not having application in case of this RC Cooper case, because here in his individual capacity he has approached. Now again coming to the other important aspect, the property also they have discussed. So I'm just skipping all these things because that's not relevant as far as our banking perspective is, the company perspective is concerned. So I'm just skipping. Then there are other important parts which I have highlighted. So apart from this, it's a very lengthy case. See, so here again, I have only taken those parts which are relevant as far as we are concerned. So here the company that is registered under the Companies Act is a legal person. So again, see, it is a legal person and which is separate and distinct from its individual members. And the property of the company is not the property of the shareholder. So here the compensation issue has come up. Okay, so the property of the company is not the property of the shareholders, and the shareholder has merely an interest in the company arising under its articles of association. So this is important because a shareholder interest is protected under the articles of association, which is measured in terms of the money for the purpose of the liability. That is the share in the profit. So what you are entitled to being a shareholder, you are entitled to only to the profit of the company, right? And coming to the directorship, the director of a company is merely an agent. Okay, so if you are a director of the company, because of the independent existence, you are acting as an agent. Not that company is acting your agent, but you are the agent for the purpose of management. And the holder of the deposit account in a company is its creditor. By making a deposit, now the company owes you the amount that you have given with interest. So you are becoming a creditor and you are not the owner. Just by giving the deposit, you cannot say that you are the owner. So he is not the owner of any specific fund lying with the company. So a shareholder or a depositor or a director may not therefore be entitled to move petition for infringement of the rights of the company unless the action impugned by him, his rights are also infringed. So what is the act in this particular case? In this case, through the proper ordinance or through the proper legislation, the government has acquired the banking companies. And as with regard to these shareholders, depositors and all, after acquisition, the government will pay the proper compensation to them. So nowhere the question of violation of the fundamental rights will arise. So the petition which is filed saying that there is an infringement of the fundamental rights, except if there is, writ of habeas corpus, or probably for the infringement of the guarantees under the Article 17, 23, and 24, the petitioner may seek relief in respect of his own rights and not for others. So the shareholder of a company, it is true, is not the owner of its asset, and he is merely a right to participate in the profits of the company subject to contract contained in the articles of association. But on account of the petitions, that means the legislative measures, it is not that banks are going to be wound up, है ना, बैंक्स क्लोज थोड़ी कर रहे हैं. अब वो है कि ऑनरशिप चेंज हो रहा है, यहाँ पे ऑनरशिप चेंज हो रहा है. तो अगर आप मर्जर और इफ योर एक्विजिशन आल्सो टेक्स प्लेस, as the shareholders you are willingly giving it, but the same process here the government has acquired it, and for the public welfare or the public welfare the government has got the power through the legislation. And suppose if it is not through the legislation, if it was by some other means, then the company's right also will get violated. But here that was not the case, and here he filed, this RC Cooper filed in his personal capacity as the shareholder of the bank. Not the case was filed on behalf of the bank, saying that the bank's fundamental rights has been violated. He argued, because why he ignored, because of the telco case and the other case where the company themselves have approached the court saying that our fundamental right has been violated. So by overcoming, or in order to overcome that lacuna, he approached saying that his fundamental right as a shareholder has been violated. So the court said that there is no question of violation of the shareholder or the depositor or the director will arise, considering that nothing to lose, he has not lost anything, he will be compensated, right? And the measure of the executive or legislative may impair the rights of the company alone and not of its shareholders. So it may impair the rights of the shareholders and not of the company, and the jurisdiction of the court to grant relief cannot be denied when by the state action the rights of the individual shareholder are impaired, if that action impairs the right of the company as well. So that means the court agrees that if the action from the part of the government has infringed both the shareholders right and the company's right, then the court cannot deny. But in this particular case, that has not happened. So the test in determining whether the shareholder's right is impaired is not formal, it is essentially qualitative. And if the state action impairs the right of the shareholders as well as to the company, the court will not, concentrating merely upon the technical operation of the action, deny itself the jurisdiction to grant relief. So this is a very tricky paragraph. If you see what it says, it does not deny that company will not be provided the fundamental rights. So this is a very tricky paragraph, for the reason the court never denies that it will not give the fundamental right to the company, okay, if there is violation. But it says that in considering the facts, so it always depends upon the facts, as we always say in all the cases, it depends upon the facts and situation of each case. So it has never said that companies are not entitled for the breach of any fundamental right. Here, however, the facts were different. So that is why this is very tricky, because it says, see, jurisdiction of the court to grant relief cannot be denied when by the state action the rights of the individual shareholder are impaired, and if that action impairs the rights of the company as well. So if the right that is taken by the state infringes the rights of both the shareholder and the company, then the court cannot sit quiet and say that no, we are not bound to, company is not entitled for any breach of fundamental rights. But in this case, they have not come up before the court saying that the company's fundamental rights has been violated, but he came in his personal capacity saying that being the shareholder, my right to freedom of trade and my right to equality and right to hold property has been violated. But how can he hold the property? It is not his property, right? It is not, maybe he has, his sweat, blood and all will be there. But at the same time, once the company is formed, he cannot say that it is his property. It becomes the company's property. It is not his personal property. It is the company's property, because company is having an independent legal existence. So there is no question here that there is a violation of the right of the shareholder. And what is the right of the shareholder? Rights of the shareholder has been enshrined or is followed in the Articles of Association. So by following the Articles of Association principle, his rights is to right to get the property, a profit, and to contribute and to fix his liability to the shares held by him. So the government will compensate. The government will compensate him for the shares he is holding and for acquiring the rights as a shareholder and transferring his rights to the state. He will be compensated. Hence, this case again confers the proposition that the rights of the company, the violation, or if there is any question of whether there is a violation of the fundamental rights of the company, is that it is in case of the citizenship, there is no question of company recognizing as a citizen. And when it comes to the question of fundamental rights, of course, if by any chance the company's fundamental rights has been violated, then the company can approach by invoking Article 32. Say, for example, if Delhi government, just a hypothetical situation, Delhi government is sending a notice for a company to wind up the business without saying any reason. Okay, they say that you wind up the company. We don't want to have you in our state. Now, in this situation, what is the remedy? Is it not the right of, right as a person of the company is violated? So the company can directly approach, invoke 32 and say, without any legislation, without anything, we have received the notice to wind up the company. That means the death of the company. Winding up the company means it is the death of the company. So there is no question of citizenship and all comes here. It is directly relating to the right to life of a person. So here the right to life of a legal person. Okay, I have just discussed a hypothetical situation. It has never happened and I don't think that it may happen also. But just to make you understand, so here, as on behalf of the company, so in the same case of RC Cooper, suppose if he has approached on behalf of the company like the telco and the state trading STC, state trading corporation, then the courts might have discussed in a different way. But however, taking the loop of the other cases, he has come here with his individual capacity. Though the question of citizenship will not arise in this particular case, the fundamental right of the company would have challenged. But unfortunately, he has approached the court in his individual capacity as a shareholder. Hence, the court denied, saying that as a shareholder, his rights has not been violated, his fundamental rights has not been infringed. And nor the question of company comes because acquisition, because the company is not dying, it is there. Banking company is existing and it will continue on its business. But only the ownership of the company is going to change. And the ownership, the change of ownership is also not in the hands of the company. And that is why it has approached through the proper legislative measures, and for the public welfare only the decision has been taken by the state. So the court decision makes it very clear that one aspect, that there is an independent corporate existence apart from its members, the company cannot avail the infringement of the fundamental rights that is provided to the citizens. And thirdly, in certain cases, fundamental rights of the company, if getting infringed, the courts can allow it in that aspect. Is it clear? Any doubts with regard to this? Because in the next one more case, that is relating to the Lee versus Lee's air farming case, with that we will be covering up the corporate personality or the concept of separate legal personality. And then we will be moving towards the lifting of corporate wheel. So one more case is there, that is Lee's case, Lee's versus Lee's air farming case, that I think we will discuss tomorrow. Okay, so if you have any doubts relating to this, you can ask.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, if we consider a scenario wherein, for example, the central government has banned the production, as in the manufacturing and sale of a specific good, only one, and there are
Hmm.
multiple companies, or let's say there's a single company uh,
Hmm.
which has its business in manufacturing and sale of that specific product. So
Hmm.
can the company, through its shareholders or directors or whoever is the authorized person, reach out to the government that they are not being allowed to practice their profession or carry on their business?
So let me again clarify. That's what I understood. You are saying that suppose a company which are manufacturing certain goods has been denied not to manufacture it, right?
Yes, and that is their sole business. For example,
Okay.
plastic polybags.
Okay. Okay. So now see here in this particular case, the hypothetical case again. First question is why, and if it is to again to the proper legislation. If it is to the proper legislation, then of course see they can approach the court, but the court here they can approach the court through their shareholders, like the telco and stc case they can invoke article 32, no question. Okay, the court will take the jurisdiction in that case, but here the court will consider why that has been denied or why that legislation has been, if it is through the proper legislation, it is not through, or at least to the ordinance which may again will amount to the proper legislative measures. So if it is to the welfare of, again the question of public interest and public welfare will come, and the same is what is happened in the RC Cooper case also, because it is for the public welfare or social welfare measures the bank has been acquired. So the government has justified their action. So in that case, of course, it will not be in favor of the company because the company's business is going on. So in this particular case, the government will say that if you are doing a business which is not authorized, okay, which is not authorized, so of course there is no other option for you as a company, what will say, like now the due to the china, this thing, the tiktok and all these appliances has been banned, so this power is there with the central government. So if it is through the proper legislation and in the, if it is for the welfare or for the public interest, public interest and all these are very technical terms, which is actually the, we can say, the residual power that is in the hands of the legislation, and it is required also, you don't know. Okay, so it is required also, sometimes it is misused, but sometimes it is required to take the decision for the public interest. And public interest is also a difficult, suppose see, we will be agreeing with one concept but other two will not be agreeing. Say for example, a patient will always want not to fall sick, but if you are a doctor with all your medical ethics, then how will you survive? Suppose if as a lawyers we see that we need always, the people should not fight, people should live peacefully, then what will happen to our profession? So it's actually this type of ethical conflicts are there in these aspects. So with regard to your question, what I can say is that the, in that case the company will be a loser, and company, though it is saying that my fundamental right is violated, this fundamental rights of trade is subject to the reasonable restrictions, where the constitutional itself provides for the reasonable restriction. It is not that absolute right. Got it?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes, yes. Anybody else, please? So I hope that you are following and enjoying the company law class. That's what I feel. It's only a feeling, but it's only a virtual feeling because I can't see your face, so I don't know how do you feel. But still, virtually, I feel that if somebody asks the question and give the response, I feel that at least you are listening and some
दोस्तों अगर आपको आज का लेसन पसंद आया हो तो वीडियो को लाइक करें। इसी के साथ अगर आपने अभी तक हमारा चैनल सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो सब्सक्राइब के बटन पर क्लिक करिए और बेल आइकन दबाना ना भूलें ताकि आपको एजुकेशन से रिलेटेड नए नए अपडेट्स मिलते रहें। और अधिक जानकारी पाने के लिए आप हमारे फेसबुक और इंस्टाग्राम पेज से भी जुड़ सकते हैं जिसका लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दिया गया है। धन्यवाद।